All right, so now we should be up and running. We have some questions here. Let me know if you guys can hear me all right. I have a temporary setup that is not the best, but we're here every week for those of you who are new or watching the replay. Thursday, same time, so 11:30 a.m. Los Angeles time. So we can start with Shazia's questions. So please correct this pronunciation. Sing a song. Okay, that would be right. Yeah. I wouldn't quite transcribe it that way. So you have it like this, which would be like seen, front end, g, which wouldn't be quite right. So it's So it would be, I would either write it like this, seen, right? So the dash, which I would underline it, but it shows that it's like kind of like two syllables put together, but I would also underline the N and the G. Or more in the way that you did it, instead of having the N in the first part, I would do maybe like this, sing, na. That never actually starts a word, but it will link like that, singa. Remember, it's not g, it's not singa song. No, it's singa. No, you just release that back N. The G sound present in sing, but not in song. Am I right? Yeah. So as I just said, no, there's no g. When you are releasing the back end, that ng sound, a tiny bit of g is okay. It's fine, but you should not be trying to pronounce a g sound. It's not actually part of the sound itself. It's a potential consequence of the physical mechanics of the mouth. When you release that position, a little bit of g might come out. But then, yes, when you say song, you're not releasing anything into another word or something, and so it's just right? So I found it. There's a couple ways. You can keep the D and say found it. Or you can drop the D and say I found it. Either way is fine, but I found it. Take you away. Take you, take you, you. Okay, there's going to be a small W link, you, and then way. Take you away. How do we pronounce Subabjang? Okay, letter A name sounds third vowel plus second vowel, or third plus first. I do not understand that last question at all, and I will have to ask you to restate. Although actually, I think maybe that's what you mean. So the name of the letter A, when we say A, so that sound, which is a diphthong A, it's not third plus second. It's close to third plus second. It's not third plus first. So third vowel is second vowel is first vowel is E. It sounds kind of like E at the end, but it's not, because if you do that, it would be A. That's not what we say. So it is second vowel. You go into but the starting position, if you do third vowel, it'll sound okay. But it's actually, it's a sound that only exists in the diphthong A, which is a little bit higher and has a little bit of a different tongue shape. I talk about that in the lesson about the A diphthong. A diphthong. So you can go watch that, and that will explain it. Delio, hello. How's it going? Pretty good. Nice hat. Thank you. Thanks for another live. No problem. Yeah, I like this hat. I always wanted one of these, and I would always forget to buy one, and then finally I was just like, you know what, I want to buy one of these, and so I bought it. And it took a really long time to get here. Wendell, is the merged ah sound shorter than the unmerged one in lot? Okay, so vowel length. I've said this many times, and I will say it many more times until the whole world understands. vowel length in English is not determined by sound, it's determined by stress. Okay. Now, relatively speaking, yes, there are little things that can make certain sounds either seem longer or shorter. And by definition, a diphthong like A is technically longer than a monophthong individual sound like A, in terms of the sounds themselves. But what determines the length of a sound in English is the stress. Okay. So the answer to your question would be no, not at all. Is merged all sound shorter than the unmerged one in lot? Yeah, so it doesn't matter to see lot. I think lot would use the forward unmerged sound. Lot. Let me see. This is like the only good use of dictionary for, well, one of the very few good uses of the dictionary for pronunciation is to check what the idealized pronunciation is that most teachers teach instead of the actual real, pronunciation. Lot. Yeah, so looks, it's a similar enough symbol. So yeah, that would be the unmerged forward one. So if I were to say that lot, lot, or lot, it's the same length. The lot is stressed, and so it's going to be louder and longer. Is not usually used in many unstressed syllables. It's usually used in stressed syllables. But if it were in an unstressed syllable, like say if lot were not stressed, then it would be, whether I use or it would just be or It would just be shorter. That's it, because of the stress. Hey Josh, hope you're well. Pretty good, yeah. Thank you for asking. I hope everybody else is well, of course. Intermediate in English, do you think that learning a second language at this point may get in the way of getting advanced? Good question. Okay. I get this question sometimes. So I have my own view on this as well. I know I'm also aware of what several polyglots think about this. They all seem to be in agreement, more or less, and I agree with them as well. So you need to create a solid enough base in one language before you start looking at another language. So what is that solid enough base? This might depend on who you ask. Obviously, if you're advanced in a language, you don't have to be like all the way, bilingual C2 level. Like you could just be C advanced, and that is definitely solid enough. Like if you reach that level, you can start a new language if you want. It's not a problem. In the intermediate level, I would say if you have a B1 level, which is lower intermediate, B1, and that includes speaking ability. Okay, not just grammar knowledge, because your grammar knowledge might be at one point, and then your listening skill might be at another point, and your speaking skill might be at another point. It's very, very common because we tend to get, more practice with grammar and a lot less practice with speaking, especially with the way that things are traditionally taught. So if your speaking skill is at least, or is only B1, then I would strongly recommend against starting a new language. Do not. Okay, it's your choice, but I recommend against it. If you can get conversational fluency, which would be your speaking intermediate, at that point, I think that you'll be perfectly fine starting a second language. Now, you do still, you can leave English for, say, a couple months as you get started in that other language. But because you're only upper intermediate, I would recommend that within 3 to 6 months, you start adding English back in, right? So that, you don't start to lose things, and you can, sort of continue keeping your English up a little bit. Or, I mean, just straight from the beginning, you could do both at the same time. But I think it's better if you're going to start a new language to really dive into that language and like soak your brain in that language. Even if that's just listening or if it's speaking and listening, whatever, that depends on your approach. So there's a little bit of exactly how you can do it, but yeah, B2, upper intermediate level, you should be fine. Full Moon Dweller, interesting name. I like that. What does handsome is as handsome does mean? Did you hear it in daily life? Well, that's actually a flexible phrase. You can replace handsome with different things. In fact, it's actually much more common to say stupid is as stupid does. The phrase just means that whatever word you use, handsome or stupid or whatever, that's going to determine what it is that you're talking about. But the structure of the phrase itself, like in this case, you see a handsome person and you expect, them to maybe act certain ways. And so you say, well, he's handsome, so obviously he looks good and he does these things, like he takes care of himself, probably because, in order to have good looks, you probably have to take care of yourself. Or stupid is as stupid does. So you see someone doing something stupid and you're like, yeah, that guy's stupid. It's just a weird phrase we have to like affirm, which that's a word you might want to look up, affirm, that it matches what you would expect. This person is stupid, so they do stupid things. This person is handsome, so they do things that, take care of themselves that you would expect a handsome person to do. I don't know. So it's not a very common phrase, I would say, but it exists. Wendell, at 3:20 to 4 on that video, is the author speaking about two variations? I don't know which video we're talking about. I don't have any link. Remember, YouTube won't let you put links, so you have to give me the title so I can look it up. So I'll come back to that. Is there a short O sound in lot in the following junction? The music is being played at the church in Germany. What? Okay, so, well, number one, lot does not have a short O sound. Lot doesn't have any sort of O sound at all. It's ah, that's it. So you're asking, because you have the underline, I guess, played at? I guess that's what the part you're asking about. The music is being played at the church in Germany. Well, the easy answer here, there is no, which remember, there's also no long and short. But that aside, in this entire phrase, there's no O sound at all. So that would answer that question. Particularly between played and at, the vowels are A and A. So it's definitely on the opposite side of the mouth than O. Does the sound, like in the word put, have the same I like that you're using my transcription. Very nice. Thank you. Have the same pronunciation and mouth position to say the words hope and go? Good question. Let's see. Decision to say the words hope and go. The same pronunciation and mouth position. No. It would definitely wouldn't be the same pronunciation. The put uses like book, the high schwa, as I call it. Hope and go use the O sound. If I were to try to use in these words, it would be hup and g, which is clearly not right. So no, not at all. Not in any way. Can the schwa sometimes take the quality of the short O in lot? Again, there is no short O, and there is no O in lot. So maybe you can rephrase the question a bit, but I would say this doesn't apply and doesn't exist. Hey, Kame Sensei, yeah. Exactly, yeah, it says Kame. Very nice, yes. From Kame House. Love the cap. How are you? Hello, everyone. Yes, pretty good. It's been a crazy week, we'll say. Yesterday, I was completely sick. Like, I had a fever of 100.7 because I got my second vaccine shot, and I was not feeling well at all. But I'm mostly better today, so that's good. But anyway, Taylor, does the O in lot and honest and the A in father sound the same? Lot, honest, father. Yes, they're 100% the same. And let me do this really quick. Dictionary. See here. And to follow up on that, honest, let's see, lot, honest, and father. Even according to the dictionary, going off of the idealized pronunciation, lot and honest both use what looks like a backwards lowercase a, and then father uses what looks like a forward, a regular lowercase a, which are basically the same sound. Like, I definitely don't even make any distinction between those in American English because there is none. But so technically, even the dictionary, it's not just my dialect. Like, pretty much any American would say these more or less the same. Hey, English, not yeah. David Santiago Bonilla Achuri. That was unexpected. Welcome to the chat. I wanted to ask you if you can make minimal pair of 4 front vowel sounds in a video together. I'm pretty sure I have that video. In case the video exists, let me know. Yes. Let me find it really quick. And guys, remember, I know there's a lot of videos in the course, but I have and it's not quite done yet, but I do have a pronunciation course. So if there are any videos that you're not sure if I have, either you can look them up, like English hacks 4 vowels, like 4 front vowels or something. Maybe it might not come up, or you can go to the playlist for the pronunciation course and look through all the videos. I know that's kind of a hassle because there are many videos, but I try to do the sounds in order, starting with the vowels, going through the vowel chart. So that is pretty easy to find because it's going to be towards the beginning of the course. But let's see, this one here. And I still need to make more minimal pair lessons and stuff too, but because those are secondary. I've done all the really major ones, and I'm going to do the other ones later. Okay, so comparing the first 4, that's not what I wanted. Copy. Okay, so it should let me post links, hopefully. I go through. Yes. This is the slow version. I have a slow version and a fast version of comparing the first 4 front vowels. So that's the slow one. And then this is the fast one, fast. And by fast, it doesn't necessarily mean like super, super fast, but it's like normal to fast. So if the fast one is too hard for you right now, you can do the slow one. And if that one is still hard, then you know that you have to do a lot of work between these and just keep practicing. And eventually you can get to the fast one. So, okay. I'm doing okay. Glad to see you. Clay. Okay. Glad to see you here. Good. Yes, indeed. Always. Wendell has retracted messages. How do you pronounce sweetener, salve, and priesthood? Like that. So sweetener, fully enunciated, you can say sweetener, sweetener, and pronounce that T, but usually we're not going to. We're going to stop it and say sweetener, sweetener. So we'll do the stop T to the syllabic N, like in mountain, sweetener. Salve, so that's an L-colored fourth vowel, like cat, salve, just like in the word salvation, salve. And then I think that could also be pronounced as solve with an L-colored fifth vowel. I think some people say it that way, but definitely the first one for sure that I said. And then priesthood, fully enunciated with the T, priesthood, and you keep that H, everything is there. But you can say priesthood, where it actually sound like stood. It's not quite a D. It sounds kind of like the T turns into a D a little bit, and that's because of the effect of the S. The easy way to teach this is you might as well just pronounce a weak D because it's close enough. It'll sound perfectly fine. And then you drop the H. That would be like a faster, normal way to say it, priesthood. Okay, Lily, what if the second language that I want to learn is similar to my mother tongue? I mean, I speak Portuguese and the language I want to learn is Spanish, so I can already understand Spanish naturally. Okay, so good question, right? See, this is a nuanced topic, right? It depends on how many languages you already know. Obviously, that has an effect. It depends on what your native language is and what the new language is. So just giving a blanket statement like yes or no is good on one level. But I'm glad you mentioned that because, yes, it does depend on other factors. So you're in a good position because, like, say me as an English speaker, if I were to go from Spanish, say I have like a B2 level in Spanish, and then I want to learn Portuguese, that could potentially still mess me up, right? I don't think it would, but because Spanish and Portuguese are so similar, if I go really deep into Portuguese and kind of like stop the Spanish temporarily, it can really have an impact on my Spanish. So in your case, you actually don't have that problem because your native language is Portuguese. It's already in your brain, right? You learned English, and then now you're going to Spanish. And so for you, I don't think that's a problem at all. There are quite a few similarities, especially in vocabulary, between Spanish and English, but you already have the similarities in Portuguese for the most part. So there's not really going to be anything new there. And of course, Spanish and Portuguese are even more similar because like casa, right? Casa and casa is the same in both languages. So in that case, if your English speaking skills were at B1, lower intermediate, I still wouldn't necessarily recommend it because I think in any skill you want to learn, before you go into a new skill or a new area of that skill, like if it's like guitar, then okay, before you leave the guitar and go to the piano, right, or whatever it is, you want to have a solid enough base, which in all skills across the board, that would be the upper intermediate level. So that's still generally recommended. But in your specific case, if your speaking skills specifically are at least B1, which can be kind of hard to determine. I know you have to maybe do some research on that. But if your speaking skills are at least B1 in English, then in your specific case, I think you should be fine. Yes. But I would recommend that at most you maybe take a month of ignoring English and just focus on Spanish to like get started. Or just don't stop English and just bring Spanish in, and you can have Spanish be like maybe the bigger focus, say like 60% of the time, and then English 40% of the time, or 30 and 70, whatever. But I would definitely encourage you to keep going with the English, because if you don't get your skills up to that B2 level, they will start sliding faster, especially with the presence of another language, or at least they can start sliding faster. And so you might run into some problems. But I think you would be fine. Yes. David, so it's recently come to my attention that question can either be question or question. Yeah, so you're also writing it with a schwa in the second syllable instead of it could be I. So that's another variation. And suggestion may come out as suggestion or suggest. What's the difference? Or suggestion. So between those first two in suggestion, where you have like that G and then that J, like I would read those exactly the same. So are you like lengthening the sound? That doesn't make any sense to me. But in the second and third case, yeah, the saying an S or an SH before the CH sound. Yes, I've actually talked about that before on the live stream. Maybe you weren't here that day. But yes, the variations, it doesn't matter. You can use either one. And I don't think that works in all cases like this, like all words that have the same combination of sounds. Because I remember there was one I found and I was like, yeah, it sounds kind of weird to do it the other way. But generally these words can be pronounced either way. It's kind of like grocery and grocery, where you can like change that between the S and the SH, because S and SH are kind of close and similar. So there's some variation between them sometimes. Except here, of course. Well, yeah, there's that CH there also. That's the only difference. But anyway, I guess I'd like to know what exactly you're doing and whether the SSH variation comes down to enunciation or just the natural process of co-articulation. Well, we do know that S before SH can become SH. That's probably what's happening here, except it's CH, right? And so the only difference between SH and CH is that the CH is T plus CH, so you push out the T first. But ch and sh, they already sound very, very similar anyway. And so it's supposed to be question and suggestion, right, with that S sound. So that would be like, I guess, the clearly enunciated way to say it, like the proper way to say it. But I don't think that there's anything wrong at all with like even in slower speech, like if you say question, I have a question, and you like enunciate it that way, it's fine. It's absolutely fine. I think it's just a variation. And then what I'm doing and how I say it, it's probably whichever way it comes out. It's just up in the air. I'm sorry to hear about the fever. Yeah, I know. It was all right. I didn't die. At least I don't think I did. Gabriel, is there would prefer and prefer? Yes. Big difference. Now, in actual reality, if you say like, I prefer going with a friend, right, instead of by myself. Okay, so you're just making a statement. I prefer what? This is my preference, right? If you say I would prefer going with a friend, there are a couple different uses for would. There are actually quite a few uses for would, but in this case, what I can think of off the top of my head, either A, you're using would to make it hypothetical, right? So you're not saying like, well, you're saying this isn't necessarily my answer, but hypothetically, if I were to have the choice of going here by myself or with a friend, I would prefer going with a friend. So you're sort of talking about it in like abstract hypothetical terms. Or it can make it sound more polite, right? So if you're more in, I guess, like a really formal situation, and somebody says, right, even in the question, like, what would you prefer, you know, to go alone or to go with a friend? Or you might get that at a restaurant, like, which would you prefer, this item or this item, right? So the waiter might use that to make it sound more polite. And part of the reason why it can be used to sound more polite is because it's linked to that sort of hypothetical thing. It very subtly, it sort of makes it less direct and less assuming. And so it gives a little bit more of a polite sound because it sounds a little hypothetical, even though the context of the situation is not hypothetical. So if the waiter asks you which or what would you prefer, they're not saying hypothetically, they're asking you on the menu, like, which of these two do you want? But it just sounds polite. So, yeah. And also, remember, the formality in English is not a huge thing in American English. It does exist. There are places to use it. There are ways that can make things sound more polite. Politeness is really more of a big function in American English than formality. And that's really what we're talking about. Of course, can go with a formal situation, but it can also go with an informal situation. So in reality of everyday speech, like a waiter could easily just ask you, like, do you prefer this or this? Like, especially if it's like a more casual restaurant, but even like I'm thinking of like a fancy restaurant or somewhere or something like that. The waiter is probably much more likely to use would, but I can easily imagine a waiter in a fancy restaurant saying, do you prefer this or this? So it kind of just sounds a little more polite. That's all. Like, it doesn't make that big of a difference in the real world. But again, it depends on what you're talking about, what the context is. So is it like polite, or is it just purely hypothetical, like the first case I mentioned? So it's a little complicated. There's different uses of it, but there is definitely at least a slight difference there because we're adding would, which adds to the verb. Full moon dweller. How do you pronounce carrot and stick approach? Oh, stick approaches. Is there a nasal plosion? Yeah, all these technical terms. I hate technical terms. Carrot, no. There's definitely no nasal going on there. Carrot. And I will also, since I know not everybody knows this, the AR, if it's supposed to be a, right? Some speakers say they'll color a and they'll say carrot or marry, and that's okay if you want to sound that way. There are natives who do that. The way I do it, which is easier and still sounds perfectly fine and normal, is air. So there, in the way I speak, there is no ar, there's only air. So carrot. Oh, I see. Yeah, it's a whole phrase, carrot and stick approach, because it's all capital. Using quotation marks instead of capitalizing everything. This is what we do to point out certain phrases or stuff. So if you have those on your keyboard, it would be less confusing for me if you put things in quotation marks. Anyway, so carrot and stick. So what's going to happen probably carrot. So there, if you do it that way, yes, there can be a little bit of a nasal plosion, and that's fine. But there doesn't have to be. I could say carrot and, where I sort of stop that T, and then because the T and the N are in the same position, I just release the N. Carrot and instead of keratin. So it's going to be a little bit different in how it exactly sounds, if it like explodes through the nose or not. It doesn't make that big of a difference. Both are perfectly possible. There's usually more than one answer when it comes to pronunciation because it's dynamic, right? But yeah, we can drop the first part, the A sound in and, the A. Carrot and stick, we're probably going to drop the D also. We almost always drop the D on and. So we just have the N in stick. So we go straight from the N to the S. Stick approach, sticka. So sticka. We're going to get a link, becomes a light or weak K, attaching to the in approach, spelled with an A, but it's a schwa. Carrot and stick approach. Thank you so much. No problem. Steve, I understand in theory, but not in practice. So can you show me the difference between her eyes and her eyes? Yeah. Okay. So, because this was a question that Steve asked in the comments of a video a while ago, or I think earlier this week. So as I explained in that, or to that comment, in the second case, the R is longer. That's the only difference, and it's slightly longer. In faster speech, you don't have to make any change at all. They can sound 100% the same. But if we look at the first case, so we have H for in her, right? Then we have the sound, the vowel, and then that's going to link to the I in eyes. Okay, so it's going to sound like her eyes are blue. Okay, now when we say her and rise, now we have two R's. Okay, and remember, some dialects do make at least in terms of IPA, they do make a difference between the consonant and the vowel. It's not required in any way. They're not different. They're exactly the same. It's just the vowel is a little bit longer in comparison to the consonant. That's not going to really affect anything here. When you have an vowel and then an consonant, just like if I say pass some, we get a slightly longer S. And it doesn't matter that there are two S's spelled there. That's just spelling. It's one S sound plus one S sound together creates a slightly longer S sound. Pass some, pass some, pass some. Okay. It's exactly the same here, right? Because an R is an R. So her and rise, we're going to get a slightly longer R sound, not two R sounds, just a slightly longer single R sound. Her rise, her rise, her rise to power, her rise to power. Now, if I say her rise are blue, it does sound a little bit weird because it's like, why did you hold the R so long? But it could be that maybe you're just speaking really clearly and saying her eyes, right? Eyes, not rise. You're just maybe saying it very, very clearly and more slowly. It could kind of sound like her rise. So at the end of the day, it doesn't matter too much, but the technical difference is that in the second case, the R is a little bit longer. And in faster speech, if I say her eyes are blue, her rise to power, her eyes are blue, her rise to power, they can be the same length. It doesn't matter in fast speech. So I hope that explains that and makes sense now that you can actually hear it. Where do you place the stress in? Okay, good question. So in the second one, it's prefer. Well, actually, no, never mind. It's the same for both. Okay, so for both of these, there's two stress patterns that you can use. It doesn't matter which one. You can use preferable, so it's on the second, and preferably on the second. Perfectly fine, no problem. Or you can say preferable and preferably. In my mind, this probably isn't right. In my mind, putting the stress on the first one seems slightly British to me, but I myself will even use it. So I don't know if that's because I've been, like I like British English and I watch Doctor Who, and maybe I have a little bit of an influence there. And so it's like, yeah, sure. But I'm pretty sure there are some Americans who maybe use one, some who use the other. Maybe everybody uses both. I don't know, but I use both. Preferable does sound a little more standard, a little more common to me in particular, but the other one is perfectly fine. So it doesn't matter. Do you think it's useful to learn a lot of adverbs? Because when you learn an adverb, you get to learn the adjective, noun, and adverb form, or this is just going to overwhelm my brain. Okay, this is a good question. Hold on a second. One moment. Okay. Anyway. Yeah. Okay. So for this question, connection problem. At least it tells me we have a connection problem. Let me know if any issues on your end. But this is a good question because there's something called word families, and I'm going to be making lessons about this in the future. Word families when I talk more about vocabulary. And a word family is some of them are nicer to learners than others, but for example, I think of a good one here. Okay, so say, for example, the word power. Okay, so we know power itself is a noun, right? He has a lot of power or whatever. Now you can change that into an adjective using full, powerful. Okay. You can change that into an adverb using the ly in addition to full, so powerfully, right? So he's powerful. or he has a lot of power, right? It's two ways to say the same thing, or he punches powerfully, right? Or you say his punch is powerful, right? It depends on how we're arranging the sentence. So that gives you a noun, an adjective, and an adverb, but power itself can also be a verb, because sometimes the noun and the verb can just be the same word, right, without any changes. So batteries power this device. Okay, so now you have all four, right? And that would be the basics, where you learn, because not all words will have all four forms necessarily, but many words will have at least 2, 3, possibly all four. Sometimes there's more than one noun form. So like run is a verb, but you can go on a run, which is using run as a noun, or you can say running is fun. And so that's also using run as a noun in two different forms, right? One talks about it as a subject, one talks about it as an object. And I know that gets a little confusing and it's very grammar-y. Don't worry too much about that. But certain words have certain things that, maybe they're two noun forms, or, they have all four of these different things: verb, noun, adjective, adverb. And you can even take it a step farther, like in the case of power. This is why I chose power, because there's overpower, which is another verb. So if you overpower someone, it means that well, let's make this simpler. Let's say that there's a lot of demand for electricity, and the electric grid gets overpowered because there's too much demand, and so it shuts down, right? Something breaks. So you overpowered the electrical grid. Or something like that, right? So now you have another verb based on that verb, overpower, right? And there's probably even more than that, right? So I don't think that it's necessarily best practice to try to like memorize every single form of a particular word, but knowing certain ways, like say, for example, full, F-U-L, at the end of a word, not always, but it is one of the very common ways to make, say, a noun into, or a verb into an adjective, right? And if you know that, that gives you a lot of power. Again, it doesn't always work, but it gives you a lot of power. And then noticing that the ly will create an adverb, right? In your case, you're saying learning a lot of adverbs. Now, not all adverbs necessarily end in ly, but many of them do, right? And if you learn that ly form, then you can say, okay, well, if I take off the ly, then I probably have another form, right? And so you can actually learn two words at once that way. Now, what exactly is that form depends. It's not always, noun to adjective to adverb. But anyway, your particular idea of like focusing on the adverbs and then getting more out of that, that's sort of like one specific way to work with word families. And that's fantastic. I think it's really, really good. In order to avoid overwhelm, I would work with, say, a particular family. Instead of trying to learn like a bunch of adverbs and then like, all the forms related to it, pick a particular family. Okay. Say maybe you have a list of adverbs that you want to learn, and you start with one, like say it's powerfully, right? And so you go and explore, and you say, okay, what are all the forms of powerfully, right? If I change it from an adverb to different forms. And then you make sentences with those, and you try to arrange them. As I said, like, what did I say? He punches powerfully, right? Because now we're using it as an adverb to modify the verb. Or his punch, as a noun, is powerful. So now an adjective modifies a noun. So the two forms, the sentence means the same thing, right? Except it's two completely different structures, with one using the adverb, one using the adjective. And so you can also improve your grammar through this, get extra practice with using the language, playing with the language, and you probably would want to try to get some sort of feedback from somebody, even if that's a language partner or whatever. But at the end of the day, even if it's just you trying to move these things around and play with it, it's a really, really good practice. So But if you just try to learn, say you have a long list of adverbs and you just try to memorize the words of, say, okay, there's the adverb, the adjective, the noun, and you're just trying to memorize those as like a bunch of words, that's generally not going to be a good way to go. No, you want to anchor it into something where maybe you're creating a context or sentences at least. And then don't do too many at once. Yeah. The first G in suggestion is fully pronounced and it doesn't blend with the J. So like suggestion, 110,000% no. Like we wouldn't separate them. There's no reason to separate them. It's just one J sound. There's no two J. Well, when I say J, I mean J, right? There's just one J sound. There's not two. Especially because that would break English linking. Because you could think of it as like sudge S, but we don't break it that way. We would, if that were, say, the end of a word and the start of a word, the J would link over to the S anyway, and so it would sound like Jess. So there's no reason for us to hold part of the J here and then reproduce it. English doesn't work that way. Okay, I've never heard anyone actually enunciate the J to the point where it's audible, but it's the first pronunciation listed in many dictionaries. Oh yeah, let me see this. Close those. This might be one of the horrible transcription ways that, yeah. See, so this is a really, I'm glad you mentioned that. This is a really, really good example of one reason why I say don't trust the dictionary for pronunciation. There's absolutely no reason for them to put SUHG-J. It doesn't even match. I don't think that matches anybody's dialect, like anywhere in the world for this word. I would be really surprised. But especially in American English, no. I don't know why they do things like this. It doesn't make any sense. So this is a video on YouTube, how to pronounce to like a native speaker. At 3:20 to 4 on that video is the author speaking about two variations of the schwa sound in the word to. Did I already talk about this, or is this a different video? How to pronounce? Oh, that might have been. Oh yeah, that was a different one. Okay, how to pronounce to. Oh, I need to go to YouTube. I always forget to do that. Maybe YouTube first. How to pronounce to like a native speaker. Okay. I'm not seeing a video that's called that. Oh, here we are. From English Anyone. That's the one that has that exact title, so I guess it's that one. I'll put my headphones in so I don't get any copyright strikes because, you know, YouTube is broken. Okay. Get to the point. Get to the point. Get to the point. I don't care. Get to the point. Oh yeah, that's right. You gave me a particular timestamp. That's useful. So 3:20 to 4. The author is speaking about two variations of the schwa sound in the word to. In the short O, there is no short O in lot. Okay. Okay, let's take the step by step. So 3:20. Okay. So I don't. Okay, so I think, how do I address this? Okay, so to start, okay, as I said before, there's no short O. Short O doesn't exist, and it's definitely not a lot. Lot doesn't use a short O sound. Doesn't use an O sound at all. But that aside, to will never, ever, 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 ever use any form of ah. It won't use the merged ah. It won't use the unmerged ah. It won't use the unmerged ah. Okay. To does not use that. Okay. This is not even part of the sound or the word. To uses three possibilities. Okay. There are only three possibilities. There's the fully enunciated oo sound, right? Which we would think of as like oo, the letter U. So there's a fully enunciated oo sound. There's the full reduction to which would be the schwa. And then there's the possibility of like in book, what I call the high schwa. Not in an enunciated way, but in the flow of speech, it could come out more as instead of. Those are the only three possibilities for two. Okay. As for replacing the T with a D, that has nothing to do with the word itself, and it has everything to do with what is before it. Okay, so he gave two examples. He said, what do you want to do today? Now, when we say what and do, what we tend to do is we'll drop the T on what, and we'll turn the T and two into a flap D. Okay, so it'll be wadu or wada, or maybe wada if you're not enunciating it. And it's only possible if you're not enunciating. It's like, what do you, what do you? So it'll actually sound very much like do. Actually, it sounds exactly like do. What do? If I say, or sorry, what am I thinking? I'm thinking it is what and do. What am I talking about? Sorry, my brain got confused there. So if I say what and to instead of what and do, I could say, I don't know what to do. What to do? I don't know what to do. I don't know what to do. I don't know what to do. You could potentially do that. To make it clear, you say, I don't know what to do, right? And that would be clearer. But yeah, in that sentence, it was, what do you want to do? What do you wanna? What do you want to do? You can keep the T, want to do, want to, that's fine. It wouldn't be a D there. Then he also said, I had to, whatever he said, I had to leave. In that case, you can actually merge the D and the T into just a flap D. That's not the most accurate way to describe what's happening there, but it's the easiest way to think of it. And we say hadda. So it sounds exactly like had a, if we reduce a, like I had a car, I had to leave. I had a car, I had to leave. Had a car, I had to leave. Exactly the same pronunciation. Can be. You can also say I had to leave. Had to, where you more stop the D and then release the T. Also perfectly possible. I don't see him, maybe I missed it. I don't see him talking about two variations of the schwa. Maybe I skipped over a part or something. Sound of two changes. Yeah, so anyway, that's what that is. And then your second question I already answered earlier. Is there a short O sound in lot, as in lot? Again, lot does not have a short O. But there's no O sound in this sentence. The music is played at the church in Germany. There's no O sound at all in that entire sentence. Now, I think you're asking about either, I guess it would be aw, which the dictionary shows me that lot would be ah. So I don't know what that is. That's what's kind of confusing me here. But assume you're talking about play connection problem. Let me know if it's bad. Okay. So the D is going to connect over to a, like in cat, right? The fourth vowel sound for the word at. Played at, played at, played at. Now maybe you can sort of reduce that to an or something, or use the lazy played at, played it, we played it, or being played it. It can maybe reduce to an in this case. But in no way is there an a or an aw or an o of any kind. No. Okay, I know that music is not the best source for pronunciation, but I get so much from having you listen to something and giving your impression. There is an MJ song, I guess Michael Jackson song, Man in the Mirror. Yeah, it's such a good song. And I'd like to ask about a couple of things. Should I get a text? Let me get a text. Okay. Of course. Yeah, okay. So Man in the Mirror, and I'd like to ask about a couple of things. One, when he sings As They Turn Up the Collar, My Favorite Winter Coat. The vowels on coat, the vowels in on and coat stand out to me because they're the same and quite elongated. Well, they shouldn't be the same, but and then during the chorus 108, I'm starting with the Man in the Mirror. I'm hearing him sing it as Mayan. Just want to know if you're hearing this too. Okay, so well, let's go look for that. Man in the Mirror. I feel like this is a song that deserves more covers. Let's see here. Michael Jackson. Okay, to 29 seconds. I see. Yes. So partially because of scene, or it could at least from what I remember in his speech. I could be wrong about that. I never paid attention to exactly that he sounds before. But yes, I think this is more of a music thing. However, so in Southern accents, they quite like that. I'd be like, turn that, turn on. It's like on. And then they would probably say coat to say coat. Go get me a coat, right? So maybe it's a mix of music and the fact that he comes from American background and they sort of melded. But either way, I think it's primarily a music thing. And yeah, on should be ah and coat should be o in standard general American English. Then during the chorus, okay, so 108. All right. And then we have in the mirror. I'm hearing him say man. Okay. Okay. All right, good. I almost got caught up in the song there. I was like, yeah. So good observation, but I would not say that is, well, actually, hold on, because you're saying a instead of like mayan. Let me double check on, because definitely not main. So it'd be like main. Let's see. Not quite. I see why you would say that, but if I try to compare it to main, which uses a, it doesn't quite match. Even though I know main doesn't have the schwa there, it's not quite the same. But he is doing something that we sometimes do in in music when we're playing with the language, which is that I guess in this case it would be man, right? So we'll say with that "and" combination. To sort of really draw it out and make it, like, I guess, even stand out more. Again, it's not part of standard speech. But one thing we could potentially do is sort of, how do I want to explain this? Sort of move the sound around. So it would be probably that short "ah," and I'm actually hearing him start pretty much in that short "ah" area. It's not "eh," but he's not saying like "meh," right? He's saying like "meh, meh, meh," and then he's sort of bringing it from the short "ah" up towards through that diphthong, but maybe not all the way. So it is sort of like he's creating a bit of a diphthong there and then doing maybe a little bit of a tiny schwa after it. So it's like man, like man, starting with the man in man, not main, mayan, right? Man, man, man. And so it's, yeah, anyway, it's a music thing. I wouldn't worry about it. But you are correct that there is something unusual going on there, for sure. Anderson, welcome. Hi. Yes. Let me know if you have any questions. It's getting kind of hot in here. Okay. Lily, I was having a conversation with my my eyes skipped a line, so I read with me, and I was like, what? I was having a conversation with a tutor, and I said, my sister doesn't speak with me because she's afraid to make mistakes. And the tutor told me that I should have said scared to make mistakes. What did you say? Oh, okay. Yeah, I was like, what's the problem? No, afraid and scared are synonyms. They're perfect. Maybe not in all cases, but they're perfect synonyms. They're interchangeable. She's afraid to make mistakes. She's scared to make mistakes. It means exactly the same thing. There's no problem there. This particular tutor, it's possible that maybe based on their region, wherever they're from, maybe they only use scared. Some things can happen like that. Just like I say soda, but somebody from Oregon will probably say pop, right? And we're both from the West Coast, but in Oregon they say pop instead of soda. I never use pop. You know, it's just it's a dialectical vocabulary difference, even though they mean exactly the same thing and you can be completely interchangeable. So that's what I would say here. That probably explains why that person said that, but they're exactly interchangeable. It doesn't matter. Hello, Dubier Sierra. Dubier. I don't know how to pronounce that. Sorry. But yes, hello. Welcome to the chat. Let me know if you have questions. Do you pronounce the T in the word biased? Yes and no. If you fully enunciate it, so little background here for people who might not know, always feel I have to mention these things. When you have the ED ending, if the sound before it is voiceless, meaning it's just air, there's no vibration, right? Then the E is not pronounced and the D is a T sound, okay? So biased, right? It's not biased or biased. Although if you really enunciate it, you could change the T into a D. You could say like, he's very biased. Like it's a weird thing that we do based on the spelling, but that's a very rare special case. It's supposed to be a T. So biased. Now, do we pronounce it? See, a question like this, it's a good question, but a question like this is a little bit, what do I want to say? Not quite the right question, because a better question would be, can you pronounce it? Which of course the answer would still be yes. Do implies, how do you always pronounce it? Right? Like, how is it supposed to be pronounced? And we know that this is a dynamic thing. So fully enunciated, biased, okay? If it's at the end of a sentence, biased, okay? What if I say biased something. I don't know, biased person. Whoops. Trying to hit the backspace. Biased person. Can I say he's a biased person? Bias person? Shift that T forward into a P? Yeah, you totally can. Biased person, right? What if it's not a P where I can shift the T? What if, can I just drop the T? Like if I say biased, well, let's change it to a vowel. Let's say biased opinion. Okay, biased opinion, biased. Now the S isn't going to let us flap the D, but when T links to a vowel, it wants to become a flap D, and so it will become a weak D instead. So biased opinion, biased opinion. So now it is a D. Still pronounce it, but it's a D. What if it's a consonant that isn't PB or M? Let's say if we say biased, zebra, because that's what popped in my head. So a biased zebra. He's a biased zebra. Biased zebra. Yeah, you can just drop the T. Because remember, ST at the end, you don't have to drop the T, but it's a very common thing where we just drop the T. In this particular case, that T happens to be spelled with a D, but it's supposed to be pronounced as a T. And so the same rules can apply, right? So unfortunately, that's not an easy explanation, but that's the reality. Do you hear of polite formula? Did you hear of polite formula? I assume that would be like a sentence, like a formula for a sentence structure that sounds polite or something. I don't know. I've never heard of that. Either that or it's a scientific formula that is very polite to you. That's a pun. Ha, I'm so funny. Anyway. Well, you're welcome. High praise, high praise. Glad I could help. I wish it were simpler. Like that's the worst part of English pronunciation. First you have to get all these vowels, and then maybe some consonants. Not usually as big of a problem, but then there's like going from sound to sound, going from word to word. That's really like the most complicated part because it depends on what sounds we're talking about. It's not always just like this is how it's pronounced. It depends on the combinations, like S and T. The T will often drop. All right. So if there's no S before the T, then that's a different situation. So yeah, it sucks. I wish I could make it simpler, but it is what it is. So I have this favorite French series of 5 films from the 1960s. The main protagonist is called, I'm not even going to try to say it in French. And I guess I'd like to know how an American would say it. Oh, okay. I've heard some speakers say her name like Angelique, as well as Angelique. And would you place the most stress on the "and" part or the leak? Okay. So random, but okay. Interesting question. Yeah, so if I were to not try to say it in a French way, like I don't know how to pronounce that, so I'm going to say it the way that I would probably try to say it in English. It would probably be Angelique. So Anja, so the second one. However, if I were trying to sound more French, because I know the context that it's from a French film or whatever, then I would probably try to say it like the first one, Angelique. And I would even try to get that N very light, almost nasal, like Angelique. I don't know if that actually matches French, but it sounds French to us. So I would try to say it that way, and it would sound very fancy and possibly pretentious. Have you seen Angelique? Where is Angelique? Yeah. So as for the stress, Angelique. Yeah, it would be on the last syllable. So anyway, good. We're an hour and 10 minutes, and I'm like, I keep catching up, guys. This is, you got to do more. Come on. This is, I'm usually behind. This isn't normal. I guess I could talk about something. What to talk about? Now I want to listen to that song, Man in the Mirror. What to do? Let me bring up here. We reached 2,800. We're almost at 3,000 subscribers, guys. 3,000. Well, 9,001, because then I can say it's over 9,000. If you don't get that reference, then you didn't have a childhood. Anyway, that aside, comments, not content, comments. Let's see if we have anything new yet. Oh, we do. Okay. You're too fast today. What energy drink are you on? None. Absolutely none. I haven't even had any caffeine today. I guess I'm just having a good day. There, does bull and bowl, so are bull and bowl pronounced the same? No, they're not. They're pronounced very differently. There's a video where the person called 911. There's a bull on the streets, and the clerk said, "A bull?" I was reading subtitles. Was the person from the South? Because I can imagine somebody with a Southern accent saying, "There's a bull on the street. There's a bowl on the street." And it can sound like bowl. Or they could have just maybe not really, they might not have been speaking clearly. But bull, so technically it's supposed to be the high schwa, the horseshoe in IPA. Yeah, if it was like that, they're from the South, so you can completely ignore that. But the way that these are supposed to be pronounced in standard General American all across the country is the first one, B-U-L-L, uses what I call the high schwa, like book. That's according to the dictionary. You actually, I have a hack if you don't know, because it's supposed to be L-colored. It's supposed to be L-colored like in pull. But you could just do straight half L, like it's going to sound exactly the same. So you do but plus bull, bull. That's for BOWL. So that uses O, okay, not ow, uses O. So it's going to be B-O, but it's an L-colored O, okay? So it's going to be ol, bowl. So the only real difference between these two is the first one just uses the half L, bull. The second one uses an L, half L to L color the O in front of it. Bowl. What? Bull. Because of that half L, they can sound kind of similar. So if you're not speaking clearly, maybe somebody would misunderstand you. But again, if they're from the South or maybe from some special smaller region, then they might say them a little more similarly, and it'd be harder to understand. Is protagonist used commonly in daily speech? No, not at all. Protagonist is used quite commonly in when we're talking about stories or writing, especially fiction, but in everyday speech, no. In fact, even in like writing and stories, it's more common to say main character instead of protagonist, or even possibly hero or heroine if it's a female. So yeah, protagonist is just relatively uncommon all around, but especially in daily speech, like it's pretty much never used in everyday speech. When you go to the grocery store to buy groceries from the grocer, are you getting groceries, or wait, from the grocer, or groceries from the grocer? Well, as I mentioned earlier, it doesn't matter. You can say grocery, grocery. Well, I actually added an there. So you can say grocery, 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 grocery. You can say grocer, grocer. It doesn't matter. They're 100% interchangeable. They're just variations. Can you explain to me the difference between intonation and pitch? No. Okay, so how do we describe the difference between intonation and pitch? That's a good question. Well, intonation uses pitch, right? But stress also uses pitch. First, the simplest thing I'll say is, so in English, unless maybe in a case where your language uses pitch very differently, like Japanese, where you have a pitch accent, unless you have a special case like that, pitch is not a very important concept in English, at least in American English. So I wouldn't worry too much about it. That's the first thing I would say. But when we're talking about stress, right? So there's basic stress, right, within a word or whatever. And in English, pitch is part of the stress, okay? So when I say about, first syllable is unstressed, it is shorter, it is quieter, it is lower in pitch, okay? Second syllable, bout. So it's going to be louder, it's going to be longer, and it's going to be higher in pitch. And the pitch just comes with that louder, longer, well, with that loud, the loudness, okay? So the pitch technically is going to be a little relative between male and female. Not that like if you're a male, you have to do something special. It's just males' voices on average are deeper. They're lower in pitch, right? And so when the stress raises, the voice won't go, you know, like if I say about, I'm not going to say about, you know, like I'm not going to raise my pitch disproportionately, right? So where a woman might say the word about, of course, everything is going to sound a little bit higher because they have a higher pitch, because the average woman tends to have, you know, speak at a higher pitch. So it's not going to matter that much, right? It's really just tied to the stress. So you are going to go higher about, but not in a way that is, you're not going to raise the pitch in an artificial way, right? It's just tied with the stress. Okay, I hope that makes sense. Now, intonation. If you don't know anything about music, particularly the guitar, then this might not make a whole lot of sense, but I think it'll make sense to everybody. So on the guitar, for example, which it's not the perfect analogy, but when you're playing the guitar, right, if you push down a note, right, and you pluck the string and it makes a particular sound, right? Now, if you are, if you hold that down as the string is vibrating, if you sort of wiggle the note, it'll, instead of going dun, it'll go like dun, right? That's kind of like intonation. It's like an accent. By accent, I don't mean like a sound, like individual basic sound pronunciation accent. I mean, it's like a coloring of the stress. Okay. So intonation is a coloring of the stress. So if I say, right, most basic, simple use of intonation is probably to mark a yes or no question, right? So if I say, that's what it's about, we're going to drop at the end. Even though about is stressed, it needs to start dropping very sharply because that's the intonation for a regular statement. That's what it's about, right? Or if I say, what's it about? What's it about? Okay, so the stress on bout is the same. It doesn't change. It still has the same length, the same loudness, the same pitch, right? But if it's a statement, it needs to start cutting off and dropping off the cliff. So it's going to sound a little bit different than maybe the word in isolation. And if it's a yes or no question, we want to sort of raise a bit more at the end of the word, not for the whole syllable, but just at the end. It's sort of like about, right? And it'll have sort of usually what I like to call the question curl. So what's it about? What's it about? What's it about? So that's the intonation. Now, obviously the pitch is tied to that too, because if a question, if the syllable is already stressed and the question will raise it up a little bit more so that we know that it's a question, a yes or no question, then we're making it even louder, which of course is going to raise the pitch a little bit more, right? What's it about? What's it about? What's it about? About, okay. Where if it's a basic statement, the pitch is going to fall more than usual. What's it about? What's it about? Okay. And this is part of the reason why I say you don't really have to worry too much about the pitch itself. Focus on the loudness, right? Are you dropping or are you raising? Okay. But intonation can also be for emphasis, right? So if I say, let's see, I don't know. I'm really horrible thinking of examples on the spot. So if I say, for example, that was a good book. That was a good book. That's just normal, right? That was a good book. But if I say, that was a good book, right? So I'm emphasizing it. It's getting lengthened a little bit more because that's also part of it's the rhythm of English. So when I emphasize it, make it even louder and make it stand out more, it needs to be a little bit longer as well. But that aside, the intonation is going to kind of come up with that because, and there might be a coloring of it, right? Not like a question tone necessarily, but there might be, it might sound a little bit different than normal. Instead of saying that was a good book, like that was a good book, good. So it's like good book, right? So it can be really subtle, but the intonation sort of changes the color or the flavor of that that syllable, right? Another example, let's say I'm really annoyed, right? Let's say, right, I have a brother, he keeps bothering me, he keeps asking me this question, I'm trying to ignore him, right? And I say, what do you want? Okay. Now that's sort of a general intonation throughout the whole thing, right? But especially on those two words, what and want, because those are the two content words, right? What do you want? And by saying, notice I'm even pushing out the T's because I'm really emphasizing these words and showing my anger based on how I sound, right? The tone, intonation, the tone I'm taking, it's a little deeper, right? It's I'm sort of like forcing things through my vocal tract, making it sound kind of rough, right? To show that I'm annoyed or I'm mad, right? What do you want? Okay, so that's part of intonation too. It colors things. So it depends. Are you angry? You know, are you just emphasizing a word? Is it a yes or no question? Right? There's different ways that we use intonation, and it really just depends on exactly what you're saying and what you're trying to communicate. But the pitch is really just tied into the basic stress, and then it can also go up a bit with the intonation as well. But again, that's just like more stress, essentially, depending on what we're talking about. But I think that should be pretty clear, right? Like if it's not, let me know. But hopefully that answers the question. Just out of curiosity, does Anna from English Fluency Journey speak like a native, even if she doesn't? I admire her for achieving such a good pronunciation as adult. Yeah, so she was brought to my attention before, and I remember listening to her to see how she sounded. I'm going to look her up again right now. If I remember right, There were some things here and there that stood out to me that was like a little bit off, but she does have extremely good pronunciation, yes. Okay, let's do English fluency journey. We'll check here. It's an interview. I don't want that one. Okay. Yeah. So she has what I would describe as a slight coloring of an accent. I did notice I just listened to her for maybe 30 seconds. The only wrong thing that I caught was she said, instead of gathered, she said gathered. And maybe it was just that one time it happened to come out that way, but she does sound extremely good. If I weren't trying to pay attention to her pronunciation, I might not particularly notice anything, but as I was listening a lot, I do detect a hint, a little coloring of an accent. I don't know where from. I would have no idea to be able to guess. If I had to guess, I would say maybe a Slavic language, or possibly something like Spanish or Portuguese, possibly even what is it called? I can't think of the name right now. The Israeli, what language do they speak? I forgot. This is so stupid because it's like right there. Anyway, you know what I mean? But there's a little something there if I listen closely. Yeah, so just very slightly off. So I overall like her total pronunciation in all aspects, the sounds, the rhythm, the stress. I'd have to listen to her more to give her like a perfectly solid thing, but just based off of this, I would probably give her like 99.8% native. Yeah, which is fantastic. So anyway, can you give some tips in regards to intonation on how to deliver sarcasm so it's obvious you're not being serious? Well, the best sarcasm is not obvious, so I don't know why you would want to do that. I find that really hard and can never tell when a native is sarcastical. Yeah, I know. I'm kind of the same way. Like sometimes I have no idea. I'm just like, what? I'll just completely miss it. But how to deliver sarcasm? How do I want to describe that? You're going to artificially draw out the words. That's the most obvious thing. So if you say, like, okay, somebody says, good news, you have, all these extra reports to file, work or whatever. And you say, great. Right. So there's a little bit of tone in terms of like, it's not angry necessarily, but it's like really flat. It's really low. It's like dull, like, yeah, okay, fine. Right. Very lack of energy, no energy. Right. But especially if you draw it out like, oh, great. Thanks a lot. Right. That's going to sound sarcastic. Or let's say, I don't know, somebody gives you something and you say like, oh, just what I always wanted. Right. So that sounds a little more upbeat. It's not so energy drained, but notice it's still kind of artificially lengthened. It's kind of like, oh, just what I always wanted. Like every word kind of is like sort of even in a way. Like we're still using the rhythm, but it's like where we say like, oh, just what I always wanted. And it's like da 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 da. Where it's like, oh, just what I always wanted. It's sort of flattened out a little bit. So And I mean, there's maybe other ways to do it, but that's what comes to my mind. It's usually going to be drawn out more, maybe a bit flatter. The words are going to be kind of evened out a bit, you know. So anyway, and we have a troll. Thank you, troll. Goodbye, troll. Let's see. Let's do that one. We'll also, I just want us to keep going. All right. Let's see here. I don't know if that's going to block the person, but anyway. Sorry for the troll, guys. Anyway, I haven't had a troll in a while, so that's very validating. Thank you very much. Why are there 3 pronunciations of gala? Gala, gala, gala. And native speakers can't seem to agree on which one to use, and would using one of the 3 potentially make me sound pretentious? Well, personally, I don't think I've ever heard anybody use gala. That seems weird to me. But yeah, gala and gala. To me, it's like data and data. Like it's exactly the same thing. I don't think one would sound more pretentious. Maybe regionally, if you're talking to somebody from a particular place, maybe where they're from, one of them would sound pretentious. But I think gala would be safe, like all around. So I don't know, just pick one. I naturally would want to use gala. Darius, first off, I'm not sure if you'll be able to check the interview. I'll type to you right now because the person curses considerably. Oh, that's fine. But my question is, you never flap TH, right? The full Eminem interview around the minute 150, 160. He says with it 3 times. Oh, I think I know what's going on here. Maybe I have a listening issue there that you could pinpoint out. But we probably just say point out. Where's my point out where my mistake is. But if he really flaps it, why does it happen? How do you see that? He says the F word and S word a lot. Don't check the interview if it'll harm the live. Well, I have headphones, so it's not. You guys aren't going to hear it. At least I don't think you are. Do you hear the audio as I'm playing it? Because if so, that's a problem. What interview though? Because I don't. YouTube doesn't let you post links. If you try to do it, it'll just not show it to me. So you'll have to give me the name of the video, and then I can answer that for sure. But I'm pretty sure what he's doing, he's probably saying with it or something like that, which is not standard General American. That would be based off of more, a bit of Southern pronunciation, but also that's very common in the Ebonics or like the African American vernacular, I guess it's called. And so there's nothing wrong with it. I mean, if you want to do that, you can, but it will sound a bit uneducated. It won't sound standard. So the short answer here, in General American English, just normal standard General American English without any special whatever, you can never turn a TH into a T or a D, any kind of T or a D. So full interview in Eminem, the first video. Let's see. Oh, yeah. Wait, what am I doing? Eminem interview. Full interview. Eminem about Kamikaze MGK's diss Joe Budden, Tyler the Creator, and more, 2018. That's the first one it shows me. guess I can check the timestamp. Yeah, okay. 150. Yep, 100%. Exactly what I just described. He's saying with it, which is not standard. See, he even says dis. He says like dis, like dis, like dis. He's replacing the voice th with a regular d sound. That does not ever happen in general American English. That's a dialect thing. Remember, and I'm sure you've been here before, but for people who don't know, there is the dental T and D replacement of the TH sounds where you can make it flatter and say this, and that's fine. That's standard variation that all natives use, even though they're not all aware of it usually. But you replacing it with a normal D saying like dat or with it, absolutely 100% no. No. And again, if you want to use that pronunciation, it's, but it will sound kind of uneducated, it will sound more informal. So just be aware of that. Yeah. And that's the thing. I've mentioned this before because I get questions sometimes from like rap songs and hip hop songs and stuff. And the people in the industry, I mean, very often they are African American, but also the way that they tend to talk tends to use either some form of like Southern sounding accent or like the African American vernacular, like Ebonics type pronunciation. And so you have to keep that in mind that, again, there's absolutely nothing wrong with it. But there's the way that it is perceived by a general American speaker from, the rest of the country. And, if you want to talk that way, you can, but a lot of that type of music will use pronunciations that are not standard. So just, something to be aware of. Cyper Kevin, welcome. Is the sentence "it was kind of dead on release" grammatically correct? Yeah, there's no problem with that. I'm not sure why they're saying kinda. I can kind of imagine a context where that would work, but yeah, there's nothing wrong with that sentence. Maybe we already did that. Okay, Sidu, welcome. Can only focusing on pronunciation will change. So no can and will. You're using can and will at the same time. They don't work together. So take out the will. Can only focusing on pronunciation change my accent? Yes, not only will it change your accent, it is the thing that will change your accent. There are important factors such as the intonation and the rhythm, but those are sometimes important for being understood, because if you use the wrong stress pattern, it can be confusing. But those are much more for sounding natural. Okay, like the higher level things, the rhythm, the intonation, the linking to an extent, those are going to be much more for sounding natural and having a good flow. The sounds determine your accent, right? So I'm speaking the way that I normally speak now. But if I want to pretend like I'm from the South and I just kind of get the sounds moving around in my mouth in a different way, I'm going to sound like I'm from somewhere else. Okay. The sounds are your accent for the most part. And I say for the most part because, like, for example, there's the merged and unmerged ah. I speak with the cot merger. So I just say ah. Sometimes you'll hear me unmerge, and it's just a natural byproduct, but primarily I use the merged ah, where speakers from, another part of the country might use the unmerged sounds and say ah and aw instead of ah. The difference in sound is so small that it doesn't matter. You won't have an accent. You'll still sound American. But if we're talking about coming from another language, and let's say instead of saying, I don't know, hit, you say heat, hit. Like that isn't even a vowel sound in English. It doesn't match any vowel sound. So you will definitely have an accent there, right? Anyway, I have one more foreign name related question, asking those so when I speak to Americans, they would easily understand what I'm saying. For Japanese names that use the word or use the AO combination, would you guys just treat it as the AO diphthong? I know your Hatsuon is great, so try to slip into Japanese amnesia. Yeah. Okay, so I want to say these in an English way, not in a Japanese way. Okay. So what I would want to say for the first one, so hayao, so I'd say hayao, not even ha. I mean, saying hayao, like I can imagine somebody saying that, but I would actually reduce it all the way to a schwa and say hayao, hayao Miyazaki, hayao Miyazaki. Maybe even hayao Miyazaki. And then yeah, Mia. So there's a schwa there. Miyazaki, fifth vowel, Miyazaki. Oh, and how would you pronounce Nausicaa? Nausicaa. Since there's two A's, it kind of makes me want to change it to like Nausicaa or something like that. But yeah, it would probably be Nausicaa. And oh my God, your Southern accent always blows my mind. You sound so different, like it's alternate personality. Mm-hmm. I'm pretty sure every time I do a Southern accent, it comes out a little bit differently because there's a variety of Southern accents. Like there's not just one Southern accent. And mine is not based on any particular thing. It's just input from lots of different Southern speakers over my lifetime. And so I just kind of like move in that direction. But if I go to the South, they'll probably be like, your Southern accent is weird. I'll be like, well, okay. Good. Anything else, guys? I want to listen to music now. Ugh. Getting kind of hot. See, I was doing the whole thing earlier, so I shut one of my windows, and like now I'm just like, it's getting so hot. Let me open the window. Hold on. We're finally heading into the single worst part of the year, at least here in San Diego, where the nights are getting cold, starting to get cold, which means that the mornings are kind of cold, but then the day is actually hot, and I really hate it. Fall and spring are like the two worst seasons, especially fall. It's so horrible. Just let it be winter already. Do you think you can get rid of your accent in your native tongue? What? I tried multiple times. I think it's easier to lose your accent in another language. I sound like a hick in Portuguese. Okay. I see. So when I first read the first part of the question, I was like, well, if this is just how I speak, like, is it like, how would I get rid of it? Because it's just the way I speak. Like, it's not necessarily an accent. But yes, there are people from the South who say they want to become a movie star or something. And like actually Stephen Colbert is a perfect example. I don't know if you know Stephen Colbert, the Colbert Report or whatever, which is, it doesn't sound the way it's spelled. It's like Colbert, right? So the Colbert Report, he's actually from Texas. And apparently he had a very clear Texas accent. And he took pronunciation lessons to get rid of his accent. Now, I mean, obviously you watch him on TV, he sounds neutral. Right? So yeah, it's 100% possible. In fact, I would think that it would be relatively easy. Because because you already know all the words, you know all the grammar, right? It's literally just like the sounds. If you're going from, like, if you go from, say, American English to British English, there could be little changes in like the way that they use intonation or rhythm, just like a little bit. It's the same basic system, but there could be little differences like that would sound just a little bit off, in addition to the sounds. Where if you go from like an American accent to an American accent, which I'm not a complete expert on this, so I could be wrong, but it seems to me to be primarily just like the sounds themselves. And so if you, unless we're talking about it like a true Southern drawl, which can like kind of be drawn out. Like there's some speakers who speak a bit more like this, and they're very calm and drawn out in their speech. And that's going to be a little bit different than normal, but yeah, you just kind of got to adjust to the sounds. I'm so jealous of the climate in San Diego, though. Like it's 54 degrees over here and all foggy and rainy. Lucky you. I look at that was not sarcasm, by the way. I look at the weather app on my phone, scroll to San Diego, and it's just fine. Or it's just like sunny, sunny, sunny. Yeah, I know. I hate it. I hate it so much. Seriously, guys, like I'm not even joking. San Diego, like California in general, but like a place like San Diego, everybody's like, oh, it's paradise. It's like, which half the time we are overcast because we have a marine layer. But it like very rarely actually rains. So it's like cloudy half the time, sunny half the time. But it's like, oh, it's always so sunny and nice and it's warm and this and that. And it's like our lowest temperature in the middle of winter at night might get to 32 degrees, which is 0 Celsius. Maybe if it's really, really, really cold on that particular day in that particular winter. Usually it doesn't even get that low. Probably more common to get to, let's see, would that be in Celsius? Like 5 or 6 degrees Celsius at the lowest. And then in the middle of summer during the day, potentially we can go over 100, which would be maybe like 35 to 40 Celsius. But usually we don't get that high. It'll be closer to maybe like 20 to 30 Celsius. So seems like a great place. Not for me. I like the fog and the rain and the snow and the thunderstorms and the wind. I'm just living in the wrong place. I think it's difficult to me because we don't pronounce all the syllables in Portuguese like we're supposed to. I blend the words together. No. Yeah, I guess depending on your native language and how it works, might make things a little more difficult, but I don't know. It's really hot where I live as well. Global warming is real. Yeah, I know, right? Yesterday was 30 degrees at 8 p.m. down. That's hot. I don't know the exact temperature. Look that up. I approximate, which, by the way, if you guys want a shorthand to approximate between Fahrenheit and Celsius, I can tell you that. I figured it out a long time ago. Let's see here, 30 Celsius. I can't spell. To Fahrenheit. 86 Fahrenheit. Yeah, that's pretty hot. Definitely hotter than I want it to be. And at 8 p.m., at least the sun was down. Actually, no, wait. Yeah, because you're like in spring now, so maybe the sun should have been down by then. I don't know. Do you think that if you move to England and spend the next 20 years of your life there, it would alter the way you speak, or is that more dependent on what people you'd surround yourself with? No. I mean, it can have an effect for sure. But it wouldn't create any like you wouldn't start sounding like a British person. And one thing that I'll throw out here because of that is my grandma has a friend that she's known for like, I don't know, 50 years or something. And this person originally is from the UK. And this person is now like in her 80s, 70s or 80s. and she still sounds like she just got off the boat. So she's lived here for longer than 20 years, and she still sounds British. So no, not really. Like, there's no need to do it. I mean, like, if I went to England and I wanted to sound British, like I wanted to like be able to fool somebody that like, oh yeah, I'm from here, you know, then maybe I would do that. But otherwise, like if I just like, oh yeah, I'm living in England for now, and you know, this is how I speak, like, so I don't think it would really affect you that much unless you wanted to. Like if you wanted to adapt certain words or certain pronunciation, then you could. But by itself, you might have a little bit of impact, not really. Like I would probably pick up the use of bloody, but I wouldn't really know how to use it because I know it's like it's like it's a curse word, right? And it's kind of strong. But to me, it's like I don't feel anything, so I'm just like, oh, my bloody car broke down. Maybe if I do it with my American accent, they'll just like laugh, like it won't sound as bad. I don't know. But do share the shorthand hack. Yeah. So the temperature hack, converting Celsius to Fahrenheit. Yes, I have more than just English hacks. I have life hacks. So this starts to break down past, say, about like 100 degrees Fahrenheit / 40 degrees Celsius. That's where it starts to not work very well anymore. But obviously, we're not talking usually about that, like past that point. So 0 degrees Celsius is 32 degrees Fahrenheit, right? Okay. Now, what I realized is that for every 10 degrees that you go up in Celsius, it's approximately 20 degrees in Fahrenheit. So you won't get an accurate number. You'll have to actually look it up if you need to know the exact number. But if you're just trying to do it quick in your head, you can approximate. So if it's 10 degrees Celsius, it'll be about 50-ish or so, 50 to say 55 Fahrenheit. If it's, because that's 20 from 32, right? If it's 20 degrees Celsius, then it'll be somewhere around 70, 75. And then if it's 30 degrees Celsius, it'll be somewhere around 90, 95. And then past that, it starts breaking down. And let me double check that too, because let's see here. So if it was 10, so 10 Celsius is 50 Fahrenheit exactly. 20 Celsius is 68 Fahrenheit, so about 70, as I said. Yeah, that's right, because it doesn't, I was thinking it converted up, it's moves up, but it actually moves down. Yeah, so 68, so it's about 70, so that's approximately correct. And then 30 degrees Celsius is 86 Fahrenheit, like we just said, so that's about 90, right? So it's like 50, 70, 90, 10, 20, 30. And say if we go 40, it's going to be 104. So that would be where it cuts off. Like 40 is about 100. See if we do 50, what happens? Yeah, 50 goes to 122. I guess that is like another 20 up, but in my mind, for some reason, that starts disconnecting. Anyway, you get the point. Every 10 in Celsius would be about 20 in Fahrenheit. So I need the hack to convert inches to centimeters. I don't have that hack. I could probably find one. Let's see here, inches to centimeters. So I think it'd be more useful to have a hack for feet into meters. Okay, so 1 inch is 2.54 centimeters. So that's about 2.5. So let's see if we go 2, it's 5, 3, 7, 8, or 4, 10. So we're still following 2.5 roughly. 2.5, 2.5. So if we go 20, does it still hold? 20 times 2.5. Not 25, 2.5 is 50. Yeah. So that seems to hold quite consistently. There's probably a point where it breaks down. but 20 inches is 50 centimeters, and it seems to be a scale of 1 to 2.5 approximately. So if you can calculate, say you take the centimeters, so if it's like 100 centimeters, how would you even do that? Hold on. So it's 1 inch to 2.5. So you would, I guess, divide 100 by 2.5. Yeah. And that would give you the number of inches. So if we did, let's say if we did 50 divided by 2.5 is 20. So if we do 100 divided by 2.5 is 40. So 100 centimeters would be 40 inches. And again, it probably breaks down at some point. You might want to find the point where it starts to not work very well anymore. But yeah, 1 to 2.5. So that was pretty easy. Anyway, anything else, guys? We're going to 2 hours now. If we don't really have much, we can always end a little early. I mean, we're already at 2 hours. We've been going for 3, which is a bit much, but and I'm behind on my videos, and I haven't posted anything in over a week. I apologize. Been kind of a crazy week. Part of that was because I was like waiting for my appointment to see if I have ADHD or whatever, and then that did not go well. I won't go into it, but it just did not go well. So I'm kind of just like, I don't know what to do. But how fast do you have to be talking for shifting to happen? Shifting isn't too dependent on the speed. Obviously, the slower you go, the more likely we are to hit the fully enunciated sounds, words. But I could say like, oh, do you see the gold moon? Do you see the gold moon? Right? That's fine. There's no problem with that. But at that speed, it's more likely that I'm going to say, do you see the gold moon? The gold moon. Even if I'm speaking quickly, I could say, do you see the gold moon? Gold moon. See, I'm actually saying the D there. Gold moon. But the faster you go, the more likely it is that we are to shift, because it allows us to speak faster and more easily. Right? There's a lot of these rules, you shouldn't look at them as like, oh, this, like, it works this way because some reason, I don't know, this is just how it is. Like, usually there's a functional mechanical reason of why these, linking rules and stuff exist, because it allows us to speak faster and more easily. So as you go from the clear enunciated version, you're more likely to start applying more and more different types of linking rules as you speak faster. And then, of course, in really fast speech, all kinds of crazy things can happen. And that's a whole different world. But yeah, there's not really any issue there. It was not easy. I'm horrible at math, but I appreciate your effort to explain it to us. I'm horrible at math too. Although I think I have the ability to be good at math. I just am not good at math. Well, think of it this way, Gabriel. So let's say you have one apple, right? That's one apple. And we're going to put an EN on it for English, right? Actually, no, sorry, not EN. IN for inches. Okay, so there's the inches apple. There's one apple. Then 1 inch apple equals 2.5 centimeter apples, right? So you have 1, 2.5 of an apple. And then that's what it would be. So if you add 1 apple to the inches pile, you're going to have to add 2.5 more apples to the centimeter pile. So then you'll have 5 apples, right? Because 2 and 2 is 4, half and half is 1, 4 and 1 is 5. That's how I do math. So if you can use that, then you just remember, okay, whatever the number is over here, it's going to be 2.5 times as much. So, but I know math, yeah. What is the difference between a pool of water, pond, and lake in English? And don't worry about the general activity of a life outside of English accent and quality over frequency. Yeah, I guess. Well, if we're going to do that argument, I think my quality sucks too. So, and are dish, towel, and cloth words for different things? Okay, so pool, pond, and lake. Yes, there is a difference there. So a pool of water, like obviously pool can have a very specific meaning, which means like in your backyard or in like location, there's a body of water where people go to swim, right? So that's a specific meaning of pool. Pool actually is a very broad general term that, let's see, let's say, what's a good example here? So let's say there's an area where kind of like things kind of meet in the middle, right? Sort of like a bowl, but like bigger. So it's not like a bowl of water would be a bowl, not a pool. But if it's like sort of bigger, usually like a natural thing or maybe on cement or something, and say it rains, and so the water doesn't really have anywhere to drain, and so there's just like water sitting there, right? You could call that a pool of water, right? It wouldn't quite, technically it would be kind of like a puddle, but usually a puddle is like a small pool of water, and it doesn't have to be quite that small. But once you get up to like the size of a pond or a lake, it's a body of water for sure, but we probably wouldn't apply the word pool anymore. So pool would be smaller than pond and lake. That would be the main difference, I would say. A pond and a lake, geographically, I'm sure there are technical differences between them, just like alligator and crocodile. There are technical differences between them. As far as I'm concerned, alligators and crocodiles are the same animal. I don't care. I don't see the need to split the hairs. They're similar enough to me, so I don't care. Same thing with pond and lake. Like if I see a lake, I might call it a pond, and if I see a pond, I might call it a lake. I don't really know what the technical difference is. It's the same thing to me. So I wouldn't worry too much about it. If you want to be more technically accurate, then the dictionary will probably tell you the difference. But as far as I'm concerned, they're the same thing. And then, of course, there's a sea and then an ocean, right? And we get bigger and bigger. So there may be some other things in between as well, but I can't think of them right now. Dish towel and dishcloth. Yes, so these are, they're not words for different things. They're words for the same thing. It's a towel or a cloth, right? A towel is a cloth. It's made of cloth, and it's used to dry dishes. So a dish towel, a dishcloth is exactly the same thing. No. That's the word birthday. Welcome, Peony Arts. That's Peony, Piney, probably Peony. Anyway, welcome. Thanks for stopping by and asking a question. That's the word birthday. Birthday. I just with this word because there are all different places. Is there some trick? Good question. Okay. So yeah, so we have the now if we were to fully clearly say all of these sounds, okay, the way that it would like supposed to be, to properly say the word, then it would be we go from let's pull back into I show it like this because I use push to R. It doesn't matter what the tip of your tongue does. Point is we pull back middle of the tongue, right? Okay, So you have to stick it forward to that TH. You don't have to put the TH between your tongue. It's not required at all to make the sound. birth, birth. So you just stick that tongue forward. And then the D is up here. So you go d. So birthday, birthday. Okay. Now, are there ways to make it a little easier? Yes, absolutely. One way to make it a little bit easier is to use the lazy TH. And if you don't know what that is, I have a lesson talking about the full range of the TH sounds. And you can go watch that. It's a video that I actually published just a little while ago. I think it was earlier this month. So you can put the TH between the teeth, which we usually use for emphasis. You can put it right behind the teeth, anywhere in these top two teeth. Okay, it doesn't really matter, as long as you're not actually touching. But then there's the lazy TH, which is actually going to be pulled back a little bit more. If you get too far back, it just sounds like air. Okay, so that's too far. But if you're just close enough to where it still sounds a little bit like a TH, that's the lazy TH. And so instead of saying birthday, you can say birthday, birthday, birthday. So that's one way to make it easier. Another way to make it easier is there is a variation of the TH called dental T or dental D, depending if it's voiced or not. Also, I talk about that in that lesson about the full range of the TH sound. So again, go watch that if you're not familiar with it. But the dental T and D is where you don't actually have to put the flat on the teeth. It's just the easy, short way to explain it. So that's what I'm going to use. But instead of doing th or th, something like that, you're going to go th, th, th. This is a voiceless TH, so you don't want any voice. It's going to be a dental T, okay? And you're going to say birthday, birthday, which means that you're going to release the D from that spot. You're going to go and you're going to stop the T on the teeth flat, and then you're going to release the D from this position. Okay, birthday, birthday, birthday. And that's the easiest way to say it. Because now basically you have the and then you just go flat and release. So it actually removes one of the movements. So there you go. Centimeters are higher than inches, so I sound smaller than I actually am, even though they're the same size. Yes, I know. That's why, like if somebody tells me their height in centimeters, I'm just like, wow, that's a lot. Like, I have no idea what that means. But yeah, if you want to feel really small, make sure to include the feet, because just like you do like meters and centimeters, right? Like, I don't know, 1 meter and 10 centimeters. I don't know. We do feet and inches. So I'm 5 foot 10 inches, right? And a foot is 12 inches. So that's 12 inches times 5 plus 10 extra inches, 5 foot 10 inches. So, yeah. Do you feel like you're more likely to use the dental D or T variation with the TH when it comes after a K sound and when it's in the beginning of an utterance? Well, if it's at the beginning, definitely. 110,000% yes. When it comes after a K sound, kick the. That doesn't, I mean, maybe it's more likely, but I think the only thing that really increases the likelihood would be if it's at the start. Which even then, like, it really doesn't matter. Like, it's just a variation. Like, whatever comes out is what comes out. And then, but in linking, of course, it's going to be extremely likely. Like if we say at the, right? That's almost guaranteed to be this dental thing, which is where I think the variation comes from in the first place. Yeah. When you slice vegetables, do you use a cutting board or a chopping block? Good question. I always thought of a chopping block as something for like meat, like a butcher uses. Maybe people use chopping block for cutting board also, but I would say cutting board. Yeah. Anyway. Take these headphones off. So annoying. Always getting notifications on my phone like all day. It's ridiculous. Tired. Any other questions? Questions. I mean, I know it's not just me. I'm not just doing good today. Like you guys are slow today, or maybe we don't have as many people here. I don't know. But so I don't know. We're over 2 hours. The chat is pretty much dead. So I think maybe we might go soon. If you guys have any other questions, try to get them now, because unless I start getting a lot more consistent questions, I'm probably gonna call it for the day. Is WhatsApp popular in America? Well, I wouldn't know for sure. I mean, I don't know what's on people's phones. I would say no. I'm sure there are people who use it. The only thing that I ever use WhatsApp for is if I have to text somebody in another country. Like that's it. I never use it with anybody that I actually know, like here in the States. So, well, with the one exception, one of my Spanish partners technically lives in New York, and so I would use it with him. But that was also for language exchange Spanish. So, because I had like at one point I had like 4 partners. I only had 2 main ones, but I had like 4 partners once, and for all of them I use WhatsApp. So I just put him on WhatsApp too. Have you ever come across, right? Have come, not have came. Have you ever come across two also. Have you ever come across a celebrity? So like, have I ever met a celebrity? No. I don't think so. Any tips on saying burglar alarm without sounding like you're having a seizure? And it's really funny, actually. I found this random video the other day. It just like popped up in my YouTube recommendations, and it was I guess this guy was doing a live stream, and he has a Scottish accent, and somebody commented saying, "I hear it's impossible for Scottish people to say burglar." And he kept trying to say it over and over and over again, like 10 times, and he couldn't say it. It was so funny. But burglar alarm, so burg. So you got burgul, gul. So the L can already be there as you release the g. So I can't do that with my hand, but yeah, like gul, burglar. So you go right back into that R, burglar. And then for alarm, of course, we start with a schwa, alarm. So it's L colored 5th vowel, alarm. So between the two, we're going to connect that to the which by itself is not very hard. Lura, okay. Lurala. Right, it's partially the R's that make it kind of hard. Lure alarm, burglar alarm. Just break it down into pieces. That's the basic technique for words, and for, even if it's a phrase or whatever. Identify where you're having the problem, zoom into that piece, break it down, make sure that you can do that piece well, start zooming back out and putting pieces together, smooth it out. It's a very simple step-by-step process. It's just trying to get your tongue to do that is the hard part. So what is rapport behavior? Never heard of it. That doesn't make any sense. Rapport behavior. I spelled it the British way. rapport. There's rapport building behaviors. My rapport behavior, I don't think exists. There's poor behavior, P-O-O-R behavior. Oh my God, behavior. But rapport behavior is not a thing. What is the word harder to pronounce for you? So what is, I guess the question would be, what is the hardest word for you to pronounce? And I don't know. I mean, I can pronounce pretty much anything I want in English. I'd have to think about it. There are some words that are kind of like, but I don't know. Why do so many people in America call Laura Croft Lara or Lara? Okay, good question here. So this and what's the other one? Yeah, this and this. There's another spelling. What is it? I don't think it's an O. It doesn't matter. Well, I know there's also this name with the N at the end. I can't type today, which you can also spell this way. As far as that vowel sound, are going to be the same. And right, because we hear certain people pronounce them differently, especially like in British English and stuff. But I would say Laura. Well, I guess L-A-R-A, I would say Lara. But I can also pronounce L-A-U-R-A, Lara. Lauren, right? Some people might say Laren. But Laura, Lauren, Lauren. The A-R-A, I guess, wouldn't be or. That's a little too much. But even though her name is spelt that way, you hear a lot of people say Laura Croft. So if I actually see the spelling, I wouldn't pronounce it Laura. But because a lot of people pronounce it that way, and because Lara is like, that's not really a name. Like, I'm sure it's somebody's name. I don't want to say like, hey, your name is invalid or anything, but like compared to like out of the names that we hear in at least in American English, like I never hear somebody called Lara. Like it sounds maybe like a British pronunciation of Laura to me. So we say Laura Croft. Saying Lara, that sounds a bit weird to me too. But yeah, so we lump it in with Laura, Lauren, because that's more normal and common. Anyway, it's quite the random question. Still linked to pronunciation, but how do you pronounce boisterous? Yeah, these words. Okay. You're like the first person from the US that I've heard say it correctly. Oh, well, good job, me. How do you pronounce boisterous? Okay, so the first word boisterous, I think you can change the T into a CH and say boisterous. Yeah. So because if you change the vowel, sometimes you can do this. You can't always do this, right? T plus vowel for like half of American speakers, the T becomes a CH, like in train. But if it's T plus T plus consonant, we'll change the T into CH. If it's T plus vowel, like terrain, okay, it has to say a T instead of train, which uses the consonant, right? There are some words, especially if it's unstressed, if it's in the middle of a word, that have TER, where you can actually sort of change the vowel into an consonant, because remember, the only difference between them is that the vowel is a little longer. So we're actually kind of reducing the length of it into the consonant length, and then we can change the T into a CH. So you can say boister, boisterous, boisterous. That would be like maybe a fully enunciated way, or you can say boisterous, boisterous. I personally prefer the first one, but the second one sounds perfectly fine. The second word, I have a little bit of a, what's the word I want to use? A little bit of a point of contention, I guess, because I saw one teacher on YouTube talking about how like native speakers mispronounce this word. And I guess the correct way to say it is mischievous, if I remember right. And the incorrect way is mischievous. And I will tell you right now that both of those are 100% correct, and it does not matter. It does not matter, okay? Mischievous, mischievous, or mischievous, mischievous. Now we have EE instead of mischievous, mischievous. Both are perfectly fine. Josh is a poster child for pronouncing words correctly. That's his call. I don't know. I guess. Oh, that's his calling. See, that completely changed the sentence by changing it to calling. I guess, yeah. But I mean, it is also relative. Like, as I said, some with the T plus R consonant, some speakers make the T into a CH, some speakers don't. Both are perfectly fine. It doesn't matter. You can say train or train, whichever one you like, you'll still sound perfectly fine. You'll still sound neutral. So I try not to be biasing. I can't even speak either. I try not to be biased based on like just the way that I say it, like, because I know that there's variation within the neutral spectrum. So I try to be aware of that. But anyway, is it okay to say restaurant for restaurant? Yeah. In fact, that's probably the most common way to pronounce it. Fully, it would be restaurant, right? So this is actually just like boisterous, restaurant, restaurant. Except here, it's going to be restaurant, restaurant. Definitely a much more common way to say it. Nothing wrong saying restaurant, but why would we take all that time? Like it feels like it's like we're adding, it almost feels like we're adding an unnecessary syllable. So we just say restaurant. Been saying it mischievous for ages. Yeah, good. No problem. No problem. Yeah, I really hate that. Because I mean, obviously, there's tons of wrong ways you can pronounce things. Like if you're learning English and you don't have the sound right, like obviously you're not saying it right. But I really hate it when there's teachers who say like, "Oh, this is like," because sometimes there's not a lot of variation. Like some words are just pronounced the same across the board. But I really hate it when there are some words that do have variation that are perfectly fine. Say like data. Like if a teacher says like, "Oh, it's pronounced," I don't know which one they would pick. Let's say data. Like, "Oh, it's pronounced data," and like that's the way to say it. And like if you don't say it, then it's wrong. Like that bugs me so much because no, it's like they're both perfectly fine. When I use the word turn and speak fast, sometimes it comes out a bit like churn. Not all the way there, but close. Okay. Is this something that happens or am I doing something wrong? Make a left turn, make a left turn, make a left turn, make a left turn. Turn here, turn here. Turn right. No. Did you turn right? Did you turn right? Did you turn right? What I'm going to say about this, it definitely shouldn't be a CH for sure. And it definitely shouldn't seem like a CH. if you're getting really, really lazy and you start to kind of slide your T a little bit and it starts to sound a tiny bit like a CH, like churn, technically that can happen. But again, if you're speaking really lazily, like that would be like if I say like, yeah, take a left turn, take a left turn, instead of take a left turn, take a left turn, take a left turn. It's like I'm just really not even putting any effort into saying the words, and I'm just like maybe yeah, but no, not usually. In fast speech, you get a little bit more leeway there. Take left turn, take left turn, turn like that. If it's like it's still clear, it's like can't even do it. But if there's no explosion of a T, no, I would say no. So the short, easy answer is avoid that. Try to avoid that. Yeah. Anyway. Okay. Well, we're at 2.5 hours, which I think is already long enough. We're pretty close to where we usually go, 3 hours. So I think 2 hours is plenty. 2.5 hours is plenty, actually. I think I'm going to go, guys. So if there's any last minute questions, I'll give you a second to try to get those in. But if not, we will be ending. Stupid YouTube not notifying me of comments. When I use, oh, we already did that one. I was like, that's new. Okay, well, I'm not seeing anything. So, I know, right? You guys gotta work harder. Anyway, no, that's fine. I mean, we made it to the 2.5 hour mark, so like, that's plenty. It just feels weird because it's like usually I'm like trying to catch up and I'm just like speaking, and now I'm just like, oh, I caught up again. So it just feels weird. But all right, well, thank you everybody for attending once again. We will be here next week, of course, as always. And yeah, make sure to write down any questions you have, or you can comment them on videos and whatnot, and we will get to them next time. So thank you all very much, and see you later.